Hello, everyone. I'm Captain Logan, and look, it's Austin the Day Ghost, and tonight we're going to do a requested commentary on The Lighthouse, which was requested by Ben, by Mr. Cool, a long time ago. And apologies for the wait, but I want to thank him for his patience. He's in the chat right now. I'm glad he was able to make it. And he's going to be upset with us for not making this in black and white. But I could not, at the last second, figure out how to do that, no BS. So I went ahead and just started broadcasting. We're real late again. I blame my son's dance. I have to get him back pretty late on Mondays and Thursdays, and they've been late all week. So anyway, we're finally here and broadcasting and ready to watch a movie with you. Thanks for staying up with us late. Austin has a really cool release of this one. Did you bring that out? Yeah, show us that, Austin.
I had it upside down apparently. So this is the inside. It's and this is the back. And then it's got like a little book inside. Oh, it's got a little postcard for Beau is Afraid, not this movie. And then it's got like some pages inside with like different artwork. Here's a nice Robert Pattinson for you.
Wow, that's cool. The only problem with a release like that is, how do you put it on a shelf? Like, where do you even put it?
So I have like my movies, and then I just put it like on top. It's just one of those.
Do you have very many irregular size releases like that?
I do, but it's mostly like sets. You know, like you have like the MCU sets they put out for the first two phases. I have a big Evil Dead and Lord of the Rings sets, stuff like that.
Yeah, I have a few weird things like that for the superhero movie collection, but like I said, most of it's like TV stuff or box sets for several films.
Yeah, exactly. It's more that this is the only one that's a movie that's awkward. Like I have maybe one or two that's like thicker or something like that, you know, but that's about it.
I have an oversized The Batman, but then it also just came with the regular box.
Oh, okay. So you could like take it out and put that with your actual
and
movies.
then I just display the box on top of a shelf, but anyway,
that's cool.
I digress. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching after the fact if you're doing that. We're going to watch through The Lighthouse and discuss it with you. This is an option that requesters have if you want to go to the $30 tier. And a quick plug for ReQuest. Regular ReQuest is on the $15 tier for Patreon. Something like this would be at the $30 tier, and you only have to stick on it for 1 month. We'll put you in the queue. Mr. Cool asked for this back when I was still doing scripted analysis, and the few of those I had left I switched over to commentary. So again, thanks to those guys for being patient and being understanding about that. Austin, this one is a little bit intimidating for me. This is one that I've been a little bit leery about doing, just because I know a lot, like, it's a little polarizing. Maybe that's not even the right word. There are some people that are in the camp of, this is a little pretentious. I don't know what to do with this, but a lot of people really love it, and it's one of those movies that I've had a difficult time really penetrating and getting my mind around. When I first saw it, I was really taken in by the atmosphere and the visuals and performances, like everybody. It's a striking movie. I get why there are some big fans now of this director, Robert Eggers. But I got to the end and I was like, I don't know what to do with any of that. It feels like a lot of really interesting symbolism, and some of it I feel like I can sort of kind of peg, but it's kind of just a bunch of symbolism. I kind of struggled getting a real handle on a story and character and stuff, and trying to decide if it really even wants to tell a story, what exactly it's doing. So I was hoping it would win me over more on a second viewing, and I think I'm in about the same place with it. But we'll see as we watch back through it, Austin. Like this is one of those places where I'm really struggling to make up my mind on this one. It's a cool experience, certainly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So when I was rewatching it today, I was like, I had a little bit of I'm like a little dreading doing this, just because I'm like, a similar kind of thing. I was like, there's so much like symbolism with mythology, and then I stopped and I went, but a lot of it's like flavor text. like in this like overall story of just people going crazy, which is always what I've had with it. Like just as a movie, like that's what I latch onto, and then like everything else is just kind of like spice on top. And then I kind of stopped and went like I feel like I'm not like over analyzing it, but like putting too much fear into being like, okay, I have to sound smart and like pointing out
Yeah.
like here's all the mythology stuff, but it's like at the end of the day, like what I think works about the movie is like this part, you know what I mean? And then all that stuff is just like a cool addition.
Yeah, well, we'll get into it. I don't want to talk too much about it before we start, I guess, but I'll just say what I struggle with, and it's not just the symbolism with mythology, but also just all of the kind of like thematic stuff that you think you know what it's about, but I feel like the whole thing is just vague enough that there's a lot of possible reads, and I really resist having little enough to work with that anything could count or nothing could count. So when you say it's just kind of flavor text, like on top of this overall story, I don't fully even know what's happening. That's kind of the big problem is I don't feel like there's enough to like anchor me to really have a read. Like what I want with a thing like this, I like ambiguity in certain cases, but what I want with a thing like this is to have enough evidence that lots of reads based on what's actually in the piece that I'm actually seeing could potentially count, and it just feels really amorphous by the end.
Hmm. Yeah, no, fair enough. Oh my God, I had something I was gonna say, but I lost it. I lost it.
Oh, that's all right. I'm actually
Um,
stalling for a second because I
that's okay.
need to change my sound around, and this machine is not letting me do it all of a sudden. So anyway, just give me a second. I'm
No, and I
I'm
do remember
suddenly having a
when
weird
this,
issue.
I do remember when this came out because I think I first saw the trailer for it in front of the Joker, and
God, it's been that long, hasn't it?
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I just remember seeing this and being like, obviously they're doing completely different things, so it's not entirely fair to be like, boo, you weren't as good as this. But I just remember being like, oh, like this is like actually a movie
For
about,
the
a
record,
crazy
for
person.
the record, it's not as good as this. No, no, certainly. I definitely
No, no,
agree.
and it absolutely is.
I
I just mean
definitely
like,
agree with that.
I just mean it's obviously unfair to be like, well, you're not this movie because they're doing different things. But
Yeah.
I just remember at the time being like, oh, like this is actually what a movie about crazy people should be.
Yeah, I just feel like it's so difficult to tell when anything is a hallucination, how early hallucinations are happening, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
That it's going to be a weird thing to try to talk about because so much of I got to couch everything in. If this is what's happening, then this is my read. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I don't know what I'm
When
really
you said
looking
that,
at.
you finally clicked in the point that I lost, which is
Yeah,
the
sure.
big thing that I like about this movie is that it feels like the cinematic equivalent of reading like an old Edgar Allan Poe or like Lovecraft story.
Yeah, well, and it originally started as an attempt at adapting an unfinished Poe story.
Yeah, which I didn't know until today when I was doing like a little bit of research.
And I don't know. I sort of hate to just throw my hands in the air and go, well, it's about crazy people and madness, so just like enjoy the ride and let it wash over you because it feels like there's more to it than that, and like it's smarter than that, and also I have to talk about it for 2 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, so I don't know. I wanted to open this with I'm a little all over the place with this still. I don't totally know where I'm landing with it as far as I like how much I'm resisting like I said how amorphous it is. It is a really fun thing just to have wash over you. Like this is
Mhm.
absolutely something that I have meant to watch again and that I would watch again even after this.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a movie I watched the first time, and I went, "This is really good," but like I'm a little disappointed after The Witch. And The Witch is still my favorite Eggers film, but I do think this is pretty close at this point. And I rewatched it during COVID when I was like stuck in lockdown, and I was like, I don't know, this is like kind of a masterpiece. I feel this movie.
Well, and some of it with a thing like this also is just if it resonates with you and on what level.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is one of those things where I'm appreciating the technical stuff more than I'm appreciating, like anything thematically or. Like I don't think it's the kind of thing that really personally resonates with me that hard. Like I like Greek mythology and stuff, so some of that I sort of appreciated just as reference and stuff, and I like the setting.
Well, it's a beautifully made film, if nothing else.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I think there are a lot of folks that have deep feelings about this because it resonates with them on a personal level, and I'm having a hard time finding that. Like it hasn't hit me in that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, let's go ahead and watch it now. Get it at timestamp 0, however you're going to watch it, unless you watch it on Max like I am, and then you got to get it past their logo. There's a Max logo right at the start. Of any movie that you watch on this streaming service, so you got to get 6 or 7 seconds in, and get ready to press play when I say now, and then I'll go ahead and start reading Super Chats. Thank you guys for the support, and let's have a fun discussion together, shall we? Here we go. I'm sorry. Let me see if I can pull up the clock real quick. I did forget to do that. I gotta fix the clock. Hang on.
You said I gotta fix the clock, and now I have the roll back the rock song from "We're Back at Dinosaur Story" stuck in my head, and I don't know why that like clicked that in.
Wow, you've seen that more than me, so you actually remember that song.
Oh yeah, I grew up with that. That's like a song that's forever burned into my brain.
I've seen it with you once now, and it was really weird. That was weird on a different level than something like this. Okay.
I mean, that is kind of the kids' movie equivalent of The Lighthouse.
Everybody, please press play right now. Straight away, I'm going to start reading Super Chats. Every time I see I'll say this real quick, a commercial, a trailer for an A24 movie, Jason's always like, oh God, no, not A24. And I'm like, no, Jason, A24 is the more independent film company that makes a lot of good movies. You're thinking of Blumhouse. And he goes, oh.
Yeah, I forget what we were talking about, but I remember you said something similar to me like that, like a year ago, and I was like, oh no, you have them mixed up. A24 is the good one.
I'll read this real quick. Robert says, I just love how much this movie captures the look of classic Universal monster movies, but it's crazy how much black is at the start of this. But done as wacky, disturbing psychological thriller. Yeah, and my not being a big Universal monster person, like I recognize that, and that's really neat. I don't get giddy about it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, for sure. I mean, that is like the big selling thing for me in the first place. Seeing the trailer is like, oh, this is a throwback to old horror that I really like.
It is really interesting how much this has in common, especially thematically, with Nosferatu, which he just put out this week, and which we reviewed on Monday. Because obviously that's also much more of a straight-up Universal monster movie, but is about some of the same things. Because I talked a lot about the isolation and loneliness theme, which is, I think, more obvious and prevalent in this, and you have to kind of unwrap it a little bit more with Nosferatu.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and on top of that, he would have written Nosferatu like right before he wrote this too. So they would have been the next like back-to-back things he wrote.
It's a great point. He's in a similar headspace.
Yeah. I would be interested to know if he did much revising, because it had been a couple years. Or if that is just the script he wrote back then.
I would imagine a lot of the dialogue's probably the same.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way.
And he would have had to pivot a little bit. Obviously, the vernacular and cadence and the types of speech you're dealing with are not the same, but related. It wouldn't have been that crazy going from one to the other.
Yeah, well, and that's a big thing across all of his movies is like that old vernacular, but he's jumping from different periods too, so they're all, now I got to get into like old English or the weird Pence and Boston thing we got going on here.
Well, and he and his brother sort of co-wrote this, and apparently they both did a bunch of research, reading a ton of period novels, including a bunch of like Robert Louis Stevenson and things like that.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. I feel like Eggers is the type of guy that does a ton of research, probably more so even than he probably spends more time during that stage than he does like the actual writing process.
Well, most people wouldn't be able to sit down and immediately get, this close with,
Yeah.
with the dialogue, to make it sound this authentic. Even people that read stuff from this period all the time. Although, man, I knew those freaks in college. They could sit down and write a short story and get almost irritatingly perfect, like to the point where you're like, okay, you're just showing off. You're like, focus on your story. Stop trying to impress me with. And I don't have that with Eggers' work. I might if I read his script, because I wonder just how phonetic it is, and I cannot deal with that.
Yeah, I wonder. I feel like it probably is very phonetic, which I think makes more sense for a script because I have a similar thing with you. The phonetic thing can bother me sometimes with dialogue, but I feel like in a script because it's not something made to be read, like it's the blueprint for your movie. I think that makes more sense in a
Yeah,
script.
I do. No, I do too. I do too. But I personally don't want to have to look at it.
Oh yeah, no, of
Let me,
course.
let me go ahead and read these super chats. Mr. Cool, who requested this $2 super chat, says, "Worth the weight cap." Thanks, man. He says the experience will be enough. Once again, appreciate your. Um, it's late and I'm tired. Thanks for being cool with how long this took. He also says the movie is about the experience. How you feel is what the movie is. The fun is in the theorizing. That's why I love it anyway, in story terms anyway. And I don't want to spend the entire time having a big argument about that. I just resist it a little bit with some things. Like, I've become a lot more open, Austin, to movies that are more about an experience and a ride and how it makes you feel and evoking an emotional response before really telling a story. But it becomes very much a case by case thing where something about this movie I guess the problem is I don't realize that's what it is until too late in the game, and so I'm not with it. That's the
Oh,
problem,
okay.
is that I feel like it's not making that clear enough. I feel like I'm watching something a lot more straightforward than that before I get to the end and it's, that's all it is? Oh, okay.
Hmm.
That was
Yeah.
my experience with it. So I get I'm questioning reality, and I don't know that everything I'm looking at what is hallucination and what isn't, but I feel like I'm more with it until suddenly I'm not. As opposed to something where 10 or 15 minutes in, it's pretty clear that okay, you're not really watching traditional narrative. I can't tell that when I'm looking at this.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess that's just, me being more familiar with like this kind of thing in the like horror genre overall that like I'm kind of already picking up on what he's inspired by. So maybe like it's hitting me a little
Well,
earlier.
that's what I was going to say is I don't feel at all qualified either to talk about this or to even watch it really. I feel like there's almost prerequisites. There's almost like barriers, pardon me, to entry for a thing like this. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like who's it for? What's the audience? It doesn't have to be accessible, certainly. And in fact, I appreciate the risk it's taking and that it's just the artistic piece the man wanted to make. And if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, you don't. It's just I have to talk about it and report on my experience. And I don't know that I was the audience for this. I don't know that I get it. And if I watched a lot more things like this, it might click more into place for me at some point. And it is entertaining, certainly. But I get to the end and I'm a little disappointed with it.
Hmm. No, I mean that's fair.
I also have this weird thing with this where I actually want there to be an honest to God supernatural component, and I'm fighting with myself to decide whether it's possible that it's all hallucination or there really is the supernatural component, because the whole thing makes more sense to me if there really are mermaids and if all of the superstitious stuff that Defoe's character is talking about is true. Like if Pattinson really did bring the storm upon them because of the bird, the whole thing works better in my brain. I just
Yeah, that's the way I read it.
yeah. Well, and if I don't know why something about the whole thing keeps telling me it isn't that, but then I guess with the ending, and obviously we'll spoil everything, we're watching it. But with the ending, and you get the Prometheus like birds eating at his innards thing, I it starts to look very like fable-y and fairy tale-y.
Yeah, and that's something that kind of carries across all of his work. Like it is all very tied in, both to being, authentic to the time period, but also being very like folklore.
Well, that was one of the big questions I wanted to ask you, is if you thought it was possible we're looking at actual supernatural stuff. Because if you don't think
Yeah,
that's a crazy read, I kind of like it better.
no, that's 100% how I see it. I also will go all the way and say I like to think that it is a like Lovecraftian creature living in the lighthouse that Defoe is doing some stuff with.
Yeah, if there's nothing going on with the light itself, then I don't know what the ending means.
Hmm.
And that's the big thing on first viewing that I was like really confused about, is you have the symbolism of Prometheus. You brought fire to man. I don't even know what the light is. I don't even know what the fire is. What's the mistake he made? Like, besides murder. But that's not what Prometheus is about. So like you have the symbolism that sometimes I can't decide if it's just reference for the sake of reference or if it's actually saying something.
Well, and that's why I said like the kind of flavor text thing where at the end with the Prometheus stuff, like I'm not seeing it as saying, like this is, a retelling of Prometheus as much as it's um, using symbolism of like of this old mythology stuff to like kind of aggrandize its own story, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but for me personally, it's got to be a little more than just
Hmm.
you've heard of Prometheus, so we're doing the bird thing. I need the light to be something. If
Hmm.
you're gonna do that, you like Prometheus means something. It's got to symbolize something. What is it?
No, of course, but like I think within its own story, it is more that like what Defoe is saying, like the old like sea fairy tales.
I also feel like there's a lot of things that Defoe says that you could pick up and run with if you take it literally, and it doesn't all fit together, of course. So, like,
Hmm.
there's a place where he says that he's a figment of Pattinson's imagination. I don't think he is all the way through, but I think there are scenes where he is.
Hmm.
But is it? That was another question I was going to ask you, and this isn't because this is the read I have, but I'm wondering if you could have a read where Pattinson is alone the entire time.
I mean, probably. Uh, like I've never, watched it thinking that, but you probably could. Like there is probably an argument to be made, or a read to be made that maybe they're two sides of the same person. I guess if that's what we were to go with.
Yeah, and there are a lot of thematic reads with this, because obviously people have written about this like crazy now. When when people get into the subtext of it, looking at both Freud and Jung, and they see Jung's shadow theory in it, where one is like the dark shadow of the other.
Hmm.
But that doesn't necessarily preclude the idea that Defoe's character is real. He could exist and still be that.
Yeah, exactly.
Robert Wild, $2 super chat. It's about two guys who can't admit they're in love. And I've heard that read a ton, of course, and I always resist going to interviews that creators have given as evidence for what is in their movie because I want a piece to stand on its own. I I I would like to say that there is maybe a read with this movie where it's not as overtly uh, like homoerotic as a lot of people have seen it. Eggers says it is, but he also likes to be kind of coy about whether or not he intends for his characters to be gay. I I am very naive and don't tend to pick up on that as fast as other people do. So I had a whole viewing of this movie without noticing that at all. And people will think I'm crazy for that. On a second viewing, it's definitely there. I don't know that that's the main idea though.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can see that. That's also not exactly how I read it, but I mean, you can absolutely.
One of the things that I think is really fascinating about this movie is all of the different potential genres it falls into, that it's like nearly unclassifiable. So when you say as a horror movie, I like all the things you appreciate about it and comparing it to other horror movies of its ilk, I it also is potentially like lots of other things, and it's hard to
Hmm.
put in the basket of simply horror. And I think you could have a watch of this and not even really think about it as a horror movie. Like disturbing, unnerving, certainly, but like, is it horror before it's psychological thriller or before it's character study?
Hmm. No, I mean, absolutely. Um, I've always seen it as horror. I mean, psychological thriller, I feel like is weird because I feel like a lot of the times that is horror, it's like that graphic novel to comic book thing where it's like, but we need to
Yeah,
pretend
that's
like
fair.
it's not, so that we can accept it because there's a lot of stigma against this as a genre. But you're right, it is kind of a mix. Like this is also a really funny movie, and I know Eggers has talked about it as a comedy.
And so is
And I don't
Pattinson.
typically, yeah, and I don't typically say like comedy, but like it is a really funny movie. Like I understand why that's what they're saying, but I always see it more as like that kind of Lovecraftian thing first.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I keep wanting to say that I hesitate because it just, a lot of things just end up coming with this anyway, end up coming down to sensibilities and taste. So like
Mhm.
when you say uh you find a lot of it funny, like I simultaneously get why and also kind of don't myself.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's not a criticism. It's not a knock.
Mhm.
But it was a little surprising to me to hear that like there are bits that people have made into memes and they laugh at that it never occurred to me were like intentionally supposed to be amusing.
Yeah. Well, I think it's
Sometimes people do things when when madness gets them that an outlooker on the outside looking in would think is funny because they're acting like crazy people.
mhm. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's a very black comedy, in that way.
Uh,
Whether it being like you said, they're kind of crazy reactions or like some of the sexual stuff is like an uncomfortable funny.
Ben
Uh,
says Pattinson is screaming at the light in terror when he gets to the light in the script. That guarantee is supernatural to me. The ending is my only issue.
so I think, at least for me, because it's one of those things where like I lean on the supernatural, but I can also see it two ways, where it's like you can either see it as that, like it is, like he looks into the light and it's Cthulhu or whatever, and he goes crazy, or it's, after all of this, after this madness, it is just a light, and like he gets up there, and like it just being a light is kind of like the breaking point,
Oh,
for him. You know what I mean?
sure, yeah.
Hmm. And I mean, I'm sure there's probably like other reads that you could have on it as well. That's just kind of the two big ones it leaves me with at the end.
Yeah, that's
And
the
as
thing is,
for
I kind of wish after two viewings I had like my own real specific interpretation of all of this, and it's kind of I'm still in a place where I'm going, it could be this and it could be this and it could be this. Like by the end, it feels like maybe the idea is supposed to be Defoe seems like the crazy one, but Pattinson has lost it a lot more than him by the end. And again, this is just a potential read. And it turns out that he was maybe even more like not crazy but sociopathic or something before he got to the island, if his background is to be believed, because he let an old boss like a foreman die, and then you see what he does to Defoe here, and he clearly has deep-seated probably daddy issues, though we don't actually get into that. But he like really freaks out about the way he's being treated, which is not good. Is not okay if it's actually happening. But his reaction to it is pretty extreme. And so I like that possible interpretation that you brought up, Austin, that you could get to the end and what he perceived as Defoe's madness finally really puts him over the edge. Where
Exactly.
He was looking at a guy that seemed to be really nuts, but was hoping there was actually something to the light thing. And then he gets to the light, and then it turns out that guy was just crazy, and I'm actually even crazier.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's, we've been stirred up here for so long that this thing that is ultimately nothing seemed like the end all be all. And like, isn't that kind of tragically funny in a way?
Another weird thing with this that I can't shake, and I want to think that nobody involved in this was thinking about this, or possibly has ever even seen the show or watched it to its conclusion. But if you've watched the end of Lost, this watches like a Lost prequel. Because you have Jacob and the Man in Black, who were the only two people on the island before hundreds of years ago, and there's actually stuff with them in this exact time period in the 1800s, which is interesting, and the thing that makes the island special and has it jumping around time and space, and has or at least on the planet, and has all these like weird science fiction properties, is a light in the center that they're both trying to get their hands on and stop the other one from getting, and it's weirdly close to this.
I mean, everybody watched Lost back then, so it's possible. Maybe the ending of Lost like really pissed off Robert Eggers, and he was like, "I have this idea in the back of my head."
I wonder if that was at all an influence on this.
I don't know. I mean, it could be. I also feel like Mr. Krabs with SpongeBob and Popeye is like part of the influence for what Defoe's doing. Anything's possible.
Ben says he doesn't think that the ending meshes with the rest of the movie. In what way? Because I'm with you. The ending is the thing that, especially on first viewing, it kind of disappointed me. Where I felt like, I just had this feeling of, oh, really? That's all it is. But I don't know what you mean by it doesn't mesh with it.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know too, because it's always worked for me in that, like, again, I'm gonna say this a million times, unfortunately, so I apologize. But that kind of like Lovecraft, like we're gonna end with everyone kind of broken and crazy, and he's getting eaten out by the seagulls that he'd pissed off at the beginning. Also, now that we're just like watching him talk,
Yeah.
I feel like at this point, Defoe is kind of becoming to Samuel L. Jackson, or sorry, to Robert Eggers, what Samuel L. Jackson is to Tarantino.
Yeah.
Where it's like, here's like a director that will really push them, and like they get really great new performances out of these, really good actors. Well, in other places, in other places we maybe wouldn't push them. and I think that's great. And we know he came out recently and said he's going to be in the next two Eggers films.
I was gonna say I hope he keeps working with him.
Yeah, so it seems like he's going to be the main regular. Well, and he's in all of his films now except for The Witch.
The way he, oh, is that right? Because I haven't seen the other two, so I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
he's got like a really bit part in The Northman, but like he is in it.
Well, and he's doing these with Eggers, these larger than life characters that aren't just Defoe doing his Defoe thing. Because Defoe is
Yeah.
always kind of larger than life, or at least often is. But he's showing this range very late in his career.
Yeah, it's almost like we're getting to see him on screen do like a late stage theater thing where it's like I'm gonna go back to the roots of why I liked acting.
I don't know if you saw that, but Green Goblin just slapped Batman in the face, and it just.
That is true.
Did
Because
we
Bat-
have the Batman casting yet when this came out?
um
I don't think we did.
no, but I feel like it was shortly after because one of the first things we heard from Pattinson was he said that his Batman voice was going to be based off of Defoe's voice in this, and everyone
Oh,
went, "What?
crazy.
That's insane!" But at this point, I feel like he was just trolling.
Yeah, because he's not doing that at all.
No, and there was that rumor that like he did like a crazy voice at the beginning, and they had to like ask him to tone it down. But like,
Oh, I wonder if that
who knows?
happened.
Who knows?
And then you get to the Batman and he's pronouncing coffee Kofi, and you're like, oh, he is just doing Defoe in this movie. Okay.
You're fond of me riddles, aren't you? I seen it.
My recollection is I saw this movie and went, oh wow, Robert Pattinson can actually act. Like a lot of people probably did that hadn't seen him in much, and
Yeah.
I think he'd done some other art house type movies.
He had,
between his Twilight days and this.
but I do feel like there were some people that like had maybe missed out on some of that. Like I definitely had that. I feel like this was the first big, like, oh, Pattinson's a really good actor thing that I had.
Ben says it mainly. Let me fix this. It mainly didn't feel like it belonged, like it didn't make sense with everything else. My initial interpretation. Sorry, I'm trying to fix this. Was that it was sort of a story repeating itself story.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I wonder if he means, like, and I could totally see that instinct. If it's this, the idea that like there's always somebody new that comes, to the lighthouse and replaces the last person, and then that person is there too long and goes nuts and ends up getting killed, and then the next person comes in. You just keep, recycling, rinsing, and repeating.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that feels like it might be set up with the speech that Defoe just gave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think Robert put in a good point earlier where he said that his read on that Prometheus stuff is um, that it's Robert Pattinson's trying to take the light for himself, so it's like a reversal, I guess, of Prometheus. He's not giving it, but he's taking it, and that's where that parallel comes from.
Well, sure, but I need it to be more than I need the light to be something.
Yeah,
It's like,
no,
why
no,
does he
I understand
why does
that.
he want the light so much? And I feel like I'm so close to like touching some of this to figure some of this out, but I'm so far away too, Austin, where it's like there's all this like sexual symbolism in imagery. There's a lot of masturbation stuff in this, and which is weird for me to say out loud on the channel, but that's what it's about. And so you've got Defoe up there seeming to like pleasure himself in front of this light, and Pattinson wants to know what that's all about. But we don't know why he's doing that. It's like Defoe. He says something about like being married to the light, and he's of course very possessive of it, and he treats it like he's having like some sort of almost like spiritual communion with that. And with Pattinson, it seems more than just And I'm calling them by their actor names, by the way, because otherwise we just have to say Tom over and over again, and then you'll be very confused as to who we're talking about. But Pattinson Tom would be, or is, seems more than just curious about it. Like, almost as if it's calling to him.
Well, and that's where the supernatural thing comes in for me, where I'm like,
Yeah.
that's where I feel like
There
that's
has to
what
be
it
some kind of
is.
an influence on these guys.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's another worldly presence.
You know, because it's definitely more, obviously, it's more than just, especially by the end, I want to feel like I have authority and, like, I'm not at the bottom of the food chain. I think it maybe sort of starts from that place with him, where it's like, well, you've taken the light for yourself and you've made yourself top dog, and you're actually literally calling me a dog and talking to me like I'm an ant under your boot. Why can't I go up into the light? And so that's also representative of power to some degree, right? Or authority. And of course, it's a thing that's up high, so you're lording over your peon, and it is a symbol of power in that it dictates where ships go, and if it's not there, the ships crash. So there's inherent power in that.
Yeah, it's like a godlike light or sun lording above them.
Looking at this as a horror movie for a minute, this is a subgenre that I've always really appreciated, which is and sometimes lighthouses are creepy, but I like movies like this that take something that we very often like a location that we very often romanticize and makes it disturbing. I we do that in a 70s movie that I reviewed a lot of years ago called Don't Look Now, with Venice, where like the waters in Venice are coming up, and there's the worry that the whole city is going to drown, and we usually romanticize Venice, but we see like the darker side of that, and this does that with the setting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's also got like a almost amnesia type thing going on. I like the game Amnesia, where it's like here you are in this kind of setting, and in the real world you probably wouldn't think too much about it, but it's like a you perverted, like kind of what you said, like in a disturbing way. And it also has that same level of isolation with this.
Yeah, the moment where Pattinson falls off the harness there is really visceral. Like, I didn't see it
Yeah.
coming.
No, even rewatching it today, I was like, "Oh my god, I forgot that he falls from that."
Yeah, that's great. And with my reservations with this, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of like really good human condition stuff in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I really like it scene to scene. It's just as a whole piece, I'm having a hard time deciding how I feel about it. But
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you like the ingredients, but you're not sure the full cake is there.
that's it.
And I mean, in this type of movie, I think that's perfectly valid.
And I can't even decide if I completely mind that. You know what I mean? Like, a couple more viewings, and I might be like, yeah, that is the experience I'm having with it. That's what it is. That's, you know what I mean? Like, this could be a gun thing where, like, I need 4. I may have to see it 4 times.
And then Robert Egger, he's gonna come up to you and be like, "You're fond of me movie. I know, I seen it."
The most striking thing about this to me, on a human level, I guess is the right way to put it, is just how fragile human beings feel in a setting like this. You know, this is the kind of movie that makes you go, Dark Knight Joker was right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just a lot of versions of the Joker, really. It's just
You take us out of
that
civilization.
one bad day.
Yeah, well, not just the one bad day thing, but you take us out of, I mean, I guess so. You take us out of civilization, and you take away all the things that human beings just naturally need as an animal species, and you go, I oh, we have a very hard time holding on to our like logic and reasoning and even morality once you lose. And I like how gradually these two guys, if they're both always there, these two guys are losing everything that you need to like hold yourself together as a human being. So it starts with losing community, and then it gets to, in companionship. And so like there's only two of them. They don't always get along. One is lording over the other one. Then there are no women. They don't have their families. That's not talked about as much, but the lack of female companionship is in there. And then you get to whether you want to have a homoerotic read on it or not. I would argue that they don't have to start off like necessarily in a homosexual place. For in this particular situation, this might be a controversial thing for some people for me to say, but in this situation, for them not to entertain it eventually because they crave companionship. And then you start taking away food, and the shelter starts to fall apart. And like how much can you hang on to who you are? Like identity is a huge theme in this. When all those things go away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're seeing like everything slowly, like bit by bit, getting taken away, right? So I think that's absolutely what it's getting at.
And then the question is, do you buy how early hallucinations seem to be happening? Because I could see it both ways. Like, I think my instinct with a thing like this would be to say, gradually a character would lose more of his grip on reality as he lost more of those things, particularly once we get into sleep deprivation and once he's drunk all the time and he doesn't have a lot of protein to speak of,
And he's
etc.
getting worked like a horse.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but I do think that the detail that he let a man die before this is really important.
Hmm. Yeah, like
He might
it's almost
already
like a
have
shining.
1 foot in, if not crazy town, like I said, at least sociopathy.
Yeah, it's almost like a shining thing, right? Without just doing the shining, because we do that a lot now. But
Yeah, that's a terrific point.
like, there is probably just that level of craziness built into him already.
You know,
Yes.
I'm, I'm probably gonna appreciate this movie more now with The Shining in my back pocket. I didn't even think about that because that is a movie I really like, despite having no idea what the hell is happening by the
I
end.
mean, they do have like a similar kind of like madness to them, I would say. And it's not something that I've ever, straight up been like, oh, these are two films I would compare in that way.
No,
But
but
while we're talking about it,
but
it's
you're
like,
really onto something with it because the big thing that The Shining has over this, in my feeling, like I have a little bit more to grasp onto in
mhm,
understanding what's happening. Like a lot of the stuff with the ghosts and things at the end seems like total nonsense. I have no idea what I'm looking at. I don't know what the point is of the picture at the end of that movie. But this, we're questioning whether there's a supernatural component. There's no question about that in The Shining.
mhm.
Like there has to be. It's not just in his head.
Yeah.
That's definitely for sure.
And I think maybe that's part of why for me, like, there has to be in this as well. It's just not as showy about it, I guess. But no, because I don't think I've ever thought to compare them just in that there's so many just like in your face, like The Shining rip-off stuff in modern horror movies
Hmm.
that I feel like this almost skirted by taking a lot of influence from it, you know, in how it's made. And
They have so much in common, though,
mhm.
right? Like isolation is a big part of it.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
You
And I mean, I
know,
guess in that specific way, I've thought about them in similar themes, but
yeah.
mm,
I'll also go on record to say that The Shining could have been a black and white movie and been just as effective.
Yeah. Well, I guess because we haven't mentioned it too, I do really like the claustrophobic, like smaller frame.
The aspect ratio, yeah, it's
Yeah.
in 4:3. I
Yeah.
think that's really smart. The black and white, I kind of gives it just a generic dreariness, I guess. But I also like, for lack of a better word, the throwback nature of it. I don't think it's intentionally like trying to pretend to be a movie from another era exactly. It's not like a lot of its influence is movies from the 30s.
Hmm.
I think I read that. And you can definitely see in cinematography and shot composition a lot of deliberate uh, like old school like filmmaking choices, and it does look maybe arguably more like a movie from then than now. But I guess what I mean is it doesn't look like it doesn't look exactly like a pastiche to me. It feels like that was a choice made because it's just right for this piece, even if some
Yeah.
of the influences from there too. I don't know how articulate I'm being. I'm just saying I don't feel like it's just throwback. I don't feel like it's just homage or nostalgia or something.
Hmm. Well, so something that I've kind of talked about in my personal life, with the Universal monsters, is that I think it's really interesting that you have all of them from the 30s to 40s, and then it kind of dies out, and then in the 50s you get the last one, which is Creature from the Black Lagoon. And there's always been a part of me that has said, I wish they kept going. Like each decade, you get like one new thing that kind of can go into it. And you're right. Like this doesn't feel like a movie that you would have made back then, but it almost feels like, well, this is what like the modern day equivalent of that would be. Like, we're into the 2010s. This is what that kind of a movie would be now.
Yeah, almost like if you resurrected a director from that time period, or if they were a Futurama head in a jar. What would
Mhm.
they make being influenced by things that have come out in the last several decades,
Yeah,
but still
exactly.
staying in their mode? I think black and white is just the right choice for some things, and I don't think
Yeah.
that we should be scared of it. It is a risk because it does immediately evoke, uh, in earlier time of filmmaking.
Well, and there is, a percentage of an audience you're going to lose, but I feel like with this type of movie, they're probably not coming anyways. So it's like you're
Yeah,
able to take that risk a little bit easier.
you're right. That by itself is not the thing that you lose them over.
Hmm.
Those are the people that were laughing at things that weren't funny in Nosferatu, and those people wouldn't have wanted to watch that whether it was black and white or not. I don't guess I understand why they showed up in the first place, but
Hmm.
I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't have if that was black and white,
Well, I felt,
and that could have just straight been black and white too. But
yeah, I felt so stupid when the first trailer came out, and I was like, oh, it's in color. Like, I assumed for the longest time it was going to look like like this aspect ratio and in black and white. And then when the trailer came out, I was like, okay, but why would I assume that? Like, he made one movie that looks like this, and it makes sense for the story. Like, why
maybe
would?
you just assumed that because he was remaking a movie from 1922, and it looked like he wanted to be kind of faithful to it.
Yeah, I
Uh,
guess that's probably it.
and yeah, that could have been black and white, or it could have been like partially black and white. That's also such a like more grand epic kind of movie that like he's using the color he's using to its furthest effects. So I'm glad that's
Yeah,
there, but
yeah, exactly. And even when he does color, like, well, I mean, he's done color for his other movies. It's only this one, but he does have like a very muted color palette too, so it's not too far off.
it's weird how much I feel like I'm kind of sympathizing, or I guess I should say empathizing with Defoe by the end, considering how awful and kind of bipolar, like jumping back and forth he is
Mhm.
to Pattinson. But like what Pattinson does to him at the end is so awful that I start kind of flipping back around and I'm more on Defoe's side, even while I'm questioning a little bit how much of what I'm seeing is actually happening.
Well, I mean, I feel like he's like a crazy boss, or like a dad that's like too tough. So it's like he can be pretty rough, but it's not like that bad. So by the point where he's being forced to be a dog, it's like, oh my
Yeah,
god.
yeah. It's like, this seems disproportionate.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, have you had this thought? It's also like the reverse of what usually happens in an abusive alcoholic father-son relationship, where he's a total, like, at least verbally abusive jackass during the day when they're working, and he's like, if I tell you to strip all these nails and everything, you'll do it and you'll like it. And then at night they get drunk together and he's jovial and he's his best friend. It's like the exact opposite
Mhm.
of what usually happens in that situation.
Yeah, and I feel like we've all had that coworker, right? Where it's like they're a giant a-hole when they're working, but like when you're actually just talking to them as people, you can maybe get along with them and be friendly.
And
So,
you're right. It obviously is a coworker situation, but I find myself thinking a lot more about fathers and sons just because of the
mhm.
curious way that Pattinson reacts to it. Where,
Yeah.
like is it? And again, I'm not getting this from anything in the narrative because we're not, if memory serves, we're not told anything about his father or what that relationship was.
Mhm.
But
I mean, just the fact you have an older and a younger man, I think, is kind of telling you that. Like
yeah,
with the worker thing I was saying, that's like literally what it is. But there is, I agree, like more metaphor.
well, and my guess is he would react so horribly to the last not great boss he had for the same reason, right?
Mhm.
Like maybe these guys are reminding him of his father.
Yeah, I will, because we get like little flashes of the guy in the water, and it's also an elderly man.
And there's enough clear references to, like I said earlier, like 19th century, like famous psychologists.
Mhm.
Particularly Freud would very quickly go to parental issues.
Mhm.
And so it is curious that his dad is never brought up, but I feel like that is inherently probably in there.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I wonder if
in the
it's
same
maybe
way that
just.
like some of the phallic stuff and things like that also kind of lead to, you know, your feelings in relationship you have with your parents.
Mhm. Well, and of
If you're
course that's also
Floyd,
super Freud. Yeah, Freud definitely did not just see a lighthouse. That is one thing I don't know if
no,
you
for
saw
Freud, a
this.
lighthouse is never just a lighthouse.
I don't know if you saw this, Cap, but apparently there was originally a cut where you would show the lighthouse, and then it cut straight to Robert Pattinson's junk,
Yes.
and they filmed it, and it's like a stand-in. But when I saw that, I was like, I feel like we lost like the funniest cut in all of film history. Uh, but apparently the financiers were
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
you
the people
can't
that
do
put the
that.
money up said that's a bridge too far.
Yeah, and it makes me a little sad. But
Well, I wonder if that's the reason that you have that shot in Nosferatu is just because he keeps trying to get it in movies and he's not allowed to. So finally, somebody let him do it.
he's got Universal money now. Yeah.
He's like, well, yeah, but you'd think that would maybe make it harder, where you'd have a little bit more oversight, being with a more
Probably
major.
if it was Universal proper, like with it being focused, like
Sure,
their like B side or not B
but I'm
side,
like, really, Focus let you do
Lighthouse.
that, but A24 wouldn't.
Mhm.
But again,
Yeah,
that wasn't necessarily from the studio that distributed it so much as the people that gave him the financing.
but I
So
was gonna say A24 is also both like they produce movies, but they also distribute, and I'm not sure which this falls
I'm
under.
gonna assume they just distributed that, but
Mhm.
or this, but yeah.
Yeah, with The Witch, I feel like they definitely did, but I wasn't sure if they then picked him up for his next movie, because that is definitely a thing they do a lot, where they'll distribute someone's film and then be like, okay, your next film, like we'll take care of that.
We haven't talked about score at all. It's really unusual, and I like it a lot. It's minimal, like it doesn't come in very often, but it's in some ways it's kind of like a what am I trying to think of? Um, it's kind of like scores for some Alfred Hitchcock movies,
Oh,
where
okay, yeah.
like it's a white, and I don't mean that it sounds like his score so much as just like how little score there is reminds me of that,
Mhm.
and it comes in to kind of intensify uh, intense situations.
Well, that's very much like an old school movie thing where we'll do like a song or like a couple songs for the big moments, as you said, and then most of it will just be played
Yeah,
without music.
and sometimes you just repeat the same theme or the same song.
Yeah, this movie could have had an
Like
overture at the beginning, honestly.
like in Top Gun.
Yeah, they should have also played Highway to the Danger Zone. That should have been their overture at the beginning of the movie.
I was thinking more the love song in that movie that just comes in and out like every time the couple's about to kiss. It's like da 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 da
Oh, okay. See,
da
I've still never
da.
seen Top Gun,
My
so the
wife
only
and I
song
make
I
fun
know
of
is
that
that.
all the damn time. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What did you say, Austin?
No, I said so. The only song I know that they play is "Highway to the
Oh,
Danger
have you never
Zone."
seen that movie?
Yeah, yeah,
That's
I've
one.
still never seen it.
That's one of my wife's favorite movies, and that makes me laugh every time.
That's why I never bothered with Maverick. I was gonna see it in the theater, and then I thought, but I haven't seen the first one. I feel weird
And
doing
it
that.
stands alone fine. Like you could have.
Hmm.
It's also one of those very rare things like Blade Runner 2049 where the legacy sequel is the better movie.
I've definitely heard that with Maverick. A lot of people are saying that it's the better
It
movie.
is. It's shocking. Even my wife said that, and
Mhm.
that's like a top tier, top five movie for her. Like
So apparently, Anya Taylor-Joy wanted to be this mermaid, and Robert Eggers was like,
I
"No,
I read that he goes, you don't want to be this mermaid.
yeah, you don't want to just show up to be uh, R-rated Ariel."
So I was actually shocked when he moved the vines out of her face because when we get that first look of her face, it looked like they were like embedded in her eyes and mouth. At first, I was like, "How did they even do that?" And then he moves them away, and I'm like, "Oh, they're just on top." Okay.
No, I had a similar thing rewatching it today because it's been I don't know, maybe like 2 years since I've seen this. I think the last time I watched this was when the Northman came out.
Yeah, and I haven't seen it since shortly after it came out, which
I
is
still
nuts
remember
because it's
how
been
shocked
5
I
years
was in
now.
the theater at seeing a mermaid vagina, which is something you never think you'd say on Geek Pollution,
Yeah,
but
no,
it's
yeah.
in
Well,
this
you never
movie.
thought you'd say that in any context.
Exactly. That's
I
why I'm so shocked.
This is gonna sound crass, and I don't mean it to, but like, just how do we even have this kind of conversation? I That was a thing that even as a kid I was a little preoccupied by with things like The Little Mermaid, where I'm
No, I
like,
think we've all thought of this, and then this movie comes out and it's like, well, here you
finally
go.
did something with it. Yeah, it's like, but how does that species reproduce? There's nothing there. There's not just nothing between the legs. There are no legs. Like how do you? It's a plot point in The Little Mermaid. She has no legs.
It's really just a shame that the remake of The Little Mermaid didn't look like that.
Wasn't
That's
directed
all
by
I'm saying.
Robert Eggers.
Well, the guy who did the Peter Pan one, Disney Plus, said that he was mainly inspired by the Lighthouse, and I remember at the time being like, "What? Like, what is that movie gonna look like?" And apparently, it was really bad, which is unfortunate because that's the guy who made The Green Knight, which is a pretty good movie.
Robert Eggers makes the uh, Disney Little Mermaid and then says, "No, Anya Taylor-Joy, you still can't play the mermaid."
Ursula gets Ariel's voice, and she's like, "You're fond of me, voice. I've seen it."
Don't you like me, lobster?
You're fond of me singing.
Darren Dooley, $5 super chat. Thanks for the support tonight, guys. If you had to pick, would you say Eggers is a stronger director or screenwriter?
Oh, I don't even know how to separate them. Like, just watching his movies, like, I feel like he has such a specific way of writing and directing that it comes together in like a really good fusion that I don't know how to separate them.
He has that consummate writer-director thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I might have said this when we did Nosferatu, I don't remember, but I also feel like as a writer and as a director, he's one of the few creators working right now that really understand how to do mythology, where there are things that don't really make sense when you think about them, but that kind of stuff has like a very specific logic where it's like, okay, but it makes sense with the story. You know what I mean? Like you'll see like a Greek myth where it's like, oh, this is this person. He's one third a god, and it's like that
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. Like you
Well,
can't be one third something.
and I don't mean to keep going in circles, but that's the main reason that I really need this to have a real honest to God supernatural component. Because if I can call this a myth on the level of Greek mythology, then suddenly that stuff's not just reference, and also it has a similar internal logic as that stuff. That's a
Yeah.
lot of it. If it's all just in this guy's head, it feels pretentious in a way it doesn't. If Eggers is just making his own like sea myth.
hmm Yeah, and I don't mean to sound like an asshole when I say this, but I wonder if maybe if you saw like his other movies, if it would like kind of connect, like, oh yeah, no, this is definitely like a supernatural thing.
This is his
'Cause
mode. This is what he
this is
makes.
kind of
Yeah.
exactly, yeah. Not that you have to see all of his movies to understand this movie, but you know what I mean, like that kind of to get a better sense of what he's
No,
doing as a
but
creator.
that totally makes sense because sometimes that is a little bit of the prerequisite of the end. Like sometimes if a filmmaker, and this is only a second movie, I think, right?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
sometimes a filmmaker will be making movies for, and I don't think there's anything wrong with this, for really just his base. Like everybody understands what his mode is, the kinds of movies he makes. I would argue that there may be Tarantino movies that you wouldn't like as much if it was your first Tarantino movie.
Oh, 100%. I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood has that really bad
I think
or
with I think with
bad.
some very deliberate, specific filmmakers, and what I mean by that is like artists over people that are just making whatever your workman directors, and all respect to workman directors, but
Yeah.
where they're given a script by a Hollywood machine and they say go make this movie. When you're talking about like especially writer director artists like this, I think they develop a fraternity
hmm I mean, I guess it comes
of
down really.
viewers and not just of the people that are working with them.
I mean, I guess it comes down to that old saying of like every artist is just kind of finding new ways to say the exact same thing over and over. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Well, and he obviously is doing that with the
Yeah,
with the theme of isolation, and
because
I've
that's a big
mentioned,
part of The Witch too. Is they're a family in a community that gets kicked out, and they're like living on their own now.
and I do want to see that. I mean, Austin, I like I mentioned earlier, I've had this with James Gunn, where like
Yeah.
the more of his movies I see, the more I appreciate the ones I don't like, with the exception of Super, which I will never probably come around on. But
No, and I highly recommend The Witch. Like I said, I think that for me is still his best movie, but
and I think that's on
they're
Max
all
right now
great.
too. I almost watched that a couple weeks ago.
Oh, okay,
And it
nice.
didn't even occur to me that Nosferatu, which I was planning to see, and of course we did, was directed by the same guy. I was just like, oh, Austin keeps telling me about The Witch. I haven't seen it yet. I almost watched it. I wish I had now.
Well, and that's gonna be your big like, oh man, Galactus is gonna be amazing because the Doctor in Nosferatu is the guy who's playing Galactus,
That's exciting.
and he's like the main guy in The Witch, and his voice is just so killer.
I I like what this movie does structurally at by the halfway point. There is an argument to be made that maybe this movie is longer than it needs to be, but it's again so much atmosphere that it wants to be a slow burn. It wants you to have to live with it. It wants you to feel like uncomfortable with these guys. I'm a bit of a claustrophobe, so I definitely have that with places with this.
Mhm.
But I like how I it feels like he might get out of the lighthouse, get off the island, a little while before this, and then the crap doesn't really hit the fan until the halfway point, and then it's like, oh god, there's another hour left. Like where is all of this going to go? I like that structurally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like whenever I'm watching this, like it has such a flow and a vibe to it that I'm never even really thinking of time. Like I'm just always kind of moving along, flowing along the water.
Uh, Maybe on a third viewing, I'll come to appreciate what exactly we're doing with the dog motif, because that just clicked in with me that we are constantly throwing that word around. They call each other dogs, and then by the end of the movie, Pattinson is making Defoe pretend to be a dog. There's this really weird dominant submissive thing that happens. Uh,
That's probably just like that part of that like losing their humanity thing, right? Like it's you're not a person anymore, like you're a dog.
Yeah, and starts with and I meant to say this earlier. Starts with a clear insecurity with Pattinson in the first place. Before he
Mhm.
got to the being here at the lighthouse right now, not the first time he's been called that,
Mhm.
or he's felt like people see him that way, and so he takes that a as a massive slight, as a massive sore spot, because he's worried it's true. He's worried he is less than. He's looking for identity. He's looking for purpose. He keeps jumping around from job to job, trying to figure out what he wants to do, what he's good at, but most importantly, not wanting to be under somebody else's thumb. And he cannot figure out a way to just John Lockett and get out on his own, as have his own land and not be told what to do by anybody.
Mhm. Yeah, because from like the sense we get, all of his jobs are like this kind of, working class, like you're doing manual labor type thing, like he's being worked like a dog type thing.
This is one of my favorite bits in the movie.
Now they're barking at each other.
Yeah, I just want one of
Action
them.
with
They,
ye.
they keep they keep they keep yelling what back and forth. I just need one of them to finally say hey.
Pattinson's speech here when he's talking about the steak is so good. The way he delivers it, where his voice gets really high.
Yeah, that's true. I like how thrown off Defoe is there,
Yeah, he's like,
because
"Oh my God, you're far gone, man."
well, at first it watches like he doesn't like the swearing, and or just the idea of doing that with a steak. And then like the comedy there, and you're right, that moment is funny. The comedy there is, it works itself around to like that's what we think it is, and then it turns out that his whole reaction is, "What, you don't like my cooking?"
When this is the big line that everyone quote, it's like this and "You spilled your beans," that people quote a lot.
Well, and maybe scenes like this have a lot to do with why people latch on so hard to the homoerotic idea, because they're acting like an old married couple.
Hmm.
You also get that classically with lots of, and by the way, that's not me like trying to demean that read or dismiss that or say that it doesn't count. I just don't think it's the only possible read, or that it's necessarily, or that it can't be there more subtly, and there are other things going on as well.
At
But
the very least, there's threads, and it's not like a specific one you're picking up on, like as opposed to others.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think classically there are a lot of like odd couple situations, including the movie The Odd Couple, where you have two men that act like an old married couple, where there are no sexual undertones at all. I
Hmm.
mean, with that example, those are two married guys that are both like very girl crazy. Like you can have that situation without that underlying thing. This definitely does to some degree. We just have to, decide for ourselves what that degree is, I think.
Yeah, and I mean
Um,
they got their like two little twin beds next to each other, like the
that's
old
right.
school married couple.
When you have that moment where it looks like they're almost going to kiss, you cannot deny that there's a homoerotic sexual tension
Mhm.
in that scene. So like I would not presume to dismiss that. I
Yeah.
I again I also think that two men trapped together in a situation like this where they don't know if they'll ever see women again could get to that place whether they have ever thought to do that with another man or not, or with another man or
Mhm.
not.
Yeah, exactly. I've definitely seen it as that kind of repression, like as part of the isolation
It's
thing.
desperation.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, one or both of them are hallucinating, and it would be very easy for like one of them to imagine the other one as a woman.
Hmm. Oh God, thank God we didn't have to see Defoe's head on the mermaid.
I'm glad they didn't do that. Yeah, thank God. I guess there are only four actors in this entire movie. Am I right?
Yeah, I would think so. Because what you have one person, I think, at least on the boat at the beginning. You have the mermaid, and then obviously our main two.
I wasn't even thinking about the boat at the
Oh,
beginning. I was also thinking about the character that he transforms into in the hallucination.
okay, yeah.
That's the fourth one.
And if that's not the same person as the dead boss that's in the water, then that's maybe another person.
Yes, but that also could be a mannequin, but it's probably an actor. That is probably an actor. I Mr. Cool says I would kill for Eggers to do man/Swamp Thing.
Okay, interesting. My big thing, comic book wise, is he would make like the greatest Hellboy movie of all time. That's like kind of the only comic booky thing that I want to see him do, but at the same time, like I'm fine living in a world where that doesn't exist. But
Well, I have one.
okay,
Can I throw
is it
you mine?
Spawn?
What's that?
Is it Spawn?
No, I feel like I have to go to something period with him because I don't know if he'll
Okay.
ever want to make a modern thing. And this is actually a thing that goes to present day eventually. But if you just made, and you'd want to, if you just made the original graphic novel, you'd be going to old Viking stuff. He'd be the guy for Klaus.
Oh, sure, yeah. See, I feel like that's kind of the big thing with him in comic book is like I don't see him really on either of the big two. Like it's stuff like that.
Yeah, that's part of why I'm saying that because I think you could
Yeah.
actually probably convince him to do something like Klaus.
Hmm.
And he just proved he can do a big epic.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I mean,
I say
he
big
has.
epic, or at least something in a grander scale than something like this.
Yeah, and he's got, some of that action with the Northman. Because that was a big thing when that came out. Is I was like, okay, I've seen your first two movies, but I don't know if you can do action. And then when that came out, I was like, okay, no, you can do that.
Plushy DX, I really appreciate this insight. Old married couples sometimes aren't even that sexual.
That is true. Old married people sometimes are just making gross farting while they're sleeping, and then the other one gets mad. That is true.
I honestly expected the farting thing to be a lot more prominent, and I was kind of merciful that there's not more of that than there is.
Hmm.
I love that shot of just his eye.
Oh, it's great.
That
Yeah.
that also gives credence to my lost theory, though.
The eye shot.
Yeah, because a lot of Lost episodes open with on somebody's eye like that. That's a big Lost thing.
But and we can get off this right away. But with the farting thing, I do
Yeah,
think it's there just enough that like if that does bother you, it you're like in Pattinson's head, like where like it's bothering you in the way that that is with him.
yeah, it's bothering him too.
Yeah, exactly. Like I do think it is purposeful. Like it's not something I would take out.
Yeah, it is. It feels merciful that I'm watching it in a movie where it's not going to come up too much, as opposed to reading it in a novel. Because I can't tell you the number of novels that I've tried to read that feel the need to describe flagellants in 150 different ways across like 18 pages in a row, and I'm like, why are you so fixated on this? Like, uh,
That's bizarre.
Stephen
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Stephen King does it. Gaiman does it. I don't understand it.
Mhm. That's hilarious. I mean, uh, as
That
much as I
is
like
that is
him,
some
you can get
desperation right
lost in the
there.
weeds.
When you're like just lapping the freezing rain out of the air, like that's some desperation.
Oh yeah, that's when you're fully gone.
I'm sorry, I talked over you. What were you saying?
Oh no, I just said that's when you're fully gone. And before that, I was saying, Stephen King can get really lost in the weeds. That doesn't surprise me.
Okay, some of the score sounds a little bit like some of what Giacchino was doing in Lost. Also, I'm just gonna keep finding Lost things.
This is where that shot would have been, right?
Yeah, it would
'Cause
have
you
been
even
right
have that
there.
shot of the lighthouse going up. That's
Yeah,
probably like exactly where it was.
that's probably even though you only see it for a split second, that might be the most famous shot in this movie, right?
What, that lighthouse shot?
Yeah, I feel like people talk about that a lot.
I feel like it's the that shot that we had just a little bit earlier of Defoe when he's like looking down and screaming. I feel like that's one of them. But that lighthouse one probably is up there.
You know how we were talking a lot, Austin, when we reviewed Nosferatu, about the eroticism in that movie and how it's kind of refreshing that Eggers isn't scared of it. I mean, he's doing that back here, and it's the
Mhm.
same sort of thing where it's eroticism, but it's not remotely romantic. Like
Mhm.
it's animalistic. It's kind of gross. It's like it's blatant. It's brass tacks.
Mhm.
And here we're getting to, I guess, a similar thing that we were getting to in Nosferatu, where it's it's about man's animal nature, and
Mhm.
if you strip away, uh, logic and reason and societal norms and all of that, uh, and we're just driven by primal urge. That's what
Yeah,
you that's
which
that's what you get.
Yeah, exactly, and that's also very much how he uses it in The Witch, because the witches are naked, in that they're throwing away society and giving into their baser instincts.
And in both of these movies, and I have not seen The Witch, but in
Mhm.
both of these movies, the thing that brings us to that place most easily is lack of companionship.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean that's a big part of that film is you have a main character that's kind of even within her family ignored. You're right. I've never really stopped to think about it. He does have it's almost like the Tony Stark heart thing. He's got this isolation motif going across his entire filmography.
Yeah, that's what he's getting at.
I hope Robert Eggers is doing okay.
Yeah, what was his childhood like?
It was this. His father would be like, "Dance, Robert,
Because
dance."
because these are watching like a catharsis to me, potentially. It can also just be something that you're fascinated by,
Hmm.
something that you latch onto in observation. It doesn't necessarily have to come from personal experience.
Yeah, like even if it's, something that you've never really experienced, but the idea of it existing is interesting to you, can even be a thing.
But yeah, the big kind of uh, moral at the end of the story, that in like really messed up tragic narratives that he seems to keep getting to. I mean, two does not pattern make, but you say the witch maybe has it too. Is in what is his other movie? It's
The Northman, which
Northman.
is
Yeah.
I forget what it's actually based on, but it's based on a story that inspired Hamlet, so it's kind of like a Hamlet type story.
But it seems like the big thing he's getting to is don't run off and isolate yourself in the woods and become a hermit. Like, we all need friends. I
Hmm.
mean, it seems like that's the big thing he's getting at.
That, or he had really disturbing reads of the Disney Renaissance, because you have The Little Mermaid in this, and then Lion King with the Northman.
Oh, is the Northman kind of Lion King-ish?
Well, just because it's like, yeah, Hamlet-y, so like it has that kind of
Okay.
aspect to it.
I gotta say, Ephraim is not a name I had ever heard before this.
Yeah, I can't say that I've heard that offhand. I mean, like possibly I've heard that somewhere.
It sounds like a period name from then, but I've never heard of that.
I just assume everyone was named Tom in the olden times.
Well, yeah, I guess it's telling that that's not even his real name. You almost want to hear Defoe say, Ephraim, if that is your real name. Oh, it's
It
not.
does sound like it could be like a TAS gangster. Like the Phantasm's gonna kill Ephraim.
It does, yeah. That also, this also strikes me, Austin, as a bit of a reversal of what we would usually do with this revelation. Usually it would be the old mysterious mentor that has an alias and a backstory he doesn't want you to know about, and it would turn out that Defoe is the guy that we don't actually, that his real name is something else.
Well, especially because earlier he was talking about like, oh, I had another guy that worked under me that like went pretty mad being here. Like you could see a different version of the movie where later on it comes out that he killed that guy. Like he was the crazy one.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think the first time I saw this, I was kind of expecting there to be a reveal that the story he told was a half-truth, and that it was actually him he was talking about the whole time. And I am that man. Now, I feel like the movie is ambiguous about whether the body that Pattinson finds is actually the guy that Defoe killed, or if Defoe actually killed that guy.
Oh yeah, the like bearded head in the crab thing.
Because I think initially we're supposed to think that what you're saying is actually what happened.
Yeah, and I mean, it very well could be. It could be that they both have done something crazy like that, and now, they've ended up in hell together.
But it also, because we haven't even really talked about the purgatory angle. But it also could be that he didn't really find a body, because more and more I will have things that look real tangible that we're supposed to at least question whether they're actually happening. We're questioning reality more and more, because you get curious things like Pattinson freaks out when Defoe wrecks the boat, and then Defoe comes around and says that Pattinson's the one that wrecked the boat, and then you have I guess we're already past it now, but like their rescue boat was supposed to show up, and then Pattinson thinks it's only been a day, but it's apparently been weeks. And so it seems like he's really losing grasp on reality. So like it's possible that at some point nothing we see him do can we trust.
Yeah, like it's all just blowing up more and more, and you can't even trust that they're the same people from scene to scene.
Yeah, exactly. Because like you're seeing Defoe from his from Pattinson's perspective, and then you'll get to the next scene and Defoe is like, you're crazy lunatic, what you're talking about's not what happened. And I'm like, that's one of the things that frustrates me about it, because that's all really interesting, but then I don't know what to grab onto. I don't know what I'm really seeing, and so I have to kind of throw my hands in the air and go, this guy's crazy.
But I think that's just
I don't know what to do with any of that.
Where it's like still keeping grasp on me, where it's like that's what this character's feeling, and it really puts me in that headspace. So it's like, okay, like I'm more with the character in that way, where it's like he can't figure out what's happening, and like I'm also going, okay, like I don't fully know exactly from moment to moment either. And I think that's where it's, still keeping me hooked in.
That was a shining shot. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah. There should have been two twin Defoes standing there. Come eat me, lobster, Tom.
Again, not to
Forever
talk in
and
circles, but
ever.
I guess the reason it's more frustrating for me is because I feel like I'm already questioning reality from about 5 minutes in.
Hmm.
At least with The Shining, you have a clear point where you know the guy was relatively sane. There's
Yeah, I
also
mean,
not a ton of reality questioning in that movie exactly. Like it's a different thing, but
yeah, exactly. But I mean, Jack Torrance in that movie is pretty like insane from the get go. That too.
that looked pretty deliberately Austin to me uh, like a Greek painting.
Yes, and it's based off a specific one. I think it's
Oh, is
called
it?
The Hypnotist or Hypnotism. It's something like that. It's not the exact shot. Like it's more taking influence from it than anything.
Is it the Hypno Ray, Austin?
It is. It's Hypnotoad
Is
from
it the hip
Futurama.
hip Hypno Ray?
The row your boat.
We'll be talking about the hip Hypno Ray tomorrow night.
Avenge me!
Quick plug for that. We're doing Captain Invincible tomorrow night on the Rewind Commentary Project. So join us for that. It'll be a hoot.
Exactly. There's gonna be like 6 people that care, but those 6 people are gonna be like,
They're gonna
hell
really
yes.
enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now it just is The Shining.
Now with 100% less hedge mazes.
Quick, Robert Pattinson, retrace your steps.
I like the speech that Pattinson gives here in a little bit, where he calls out Defoe on being like a parody of a pirate,
Yeah.
or not a pirate, but like a a
Like old
sailor.
sailor, yeah.
But he's basically just doing a pirate,
Oh, ye.
which is funny because Defoe's giving such a really specific performance. Like you can tell he's worked out exactly what his pronunciation and cadence and rhythm and everything is. Like he's
Yeah.
really consistent about how he pronounces everything. He never comes in and out of it. So I'm spending the whole time going, this all feels really authentic to me. And then Pattinson is like, you parody. I was like,
No,
wow, I was bamboozled.
no, I mean, he does such a great job grounding it, but like he is just straight up walking around and being like, ah, ye. Arr.
Yeah, and I was totally buying it. It's like it
Oh,
seems
absolutely.
it does seem like a little cartoonish, a little bit of a caricature, but then I'm going, well, it's the 1800s, and
No, he made me believe that Popeye can be real. I'm seeing him.
but also it made me question how exaggerated some of that stuff is sometimes.
Hmm.
Where it's like a guy like this isn't gonna be subtle, you know. I mean, it's sort of like uh parodies and caricatures of people from the deep south,
Hmm.
where it is two things can be true, Austin. I
Yep.
have heard people do ridiculous, exaggerated, over the top accents. And I have also known people, because I'm from the South, I've also known people that talk that exaggerated. They just
Yeah, I
don't sound like
mean,
that. So it comes down sometimes to, it's not even about how over the top you are. It's just about whether you sound like someone that's from a specific region.
mhm,
Like sometimes it's just a lack of accuracy more than it is look how like over the top it is.
mhm. No, I mean, stereotypes exist for a reason. They're based in something.
One time, my aunt in Arkansas asked my wife, and she said it like this in her very thick Central Arkansas accent. Do you like to bike? And my wife could not tell if she was saying the word bake or bike. She had no idea.
And then Sarah responded in her also thick accent, "Does ye?"
Austin, is this not right around the time where Canada becomes a country?
This movie? What year is this?
It's like, what is it, like late 1880s?
Then around there, yeah.
That's
It's
what
like,
I thought. Because we talked about this when we did X-Men Origins,
yeah, but
where
part with X-Men
they
Origins,
call Canada a country like 30 years before it was one.
part of it with X-Men Origins is it specifically says this province, which didn't exist at that point, because Canada just like keeps growing out. Like we get our final province in like after the First World War.
Oh, okay, so Canada as a thing was there, but it's about what territory does it have?
Yeah, exactly. Because they specifically say the Northwest Territories, which is just part of a big spot of land that's owned by the Hudson's Bay Company at that point.
They are desperate to get drunk. Although Austin, I can't say that I've never had a shot of whiskey from particular brands that didn't make me make that noise. I absolutely have done that.
I don't know why, but just in that moment when Robert Pattinson's doing the chest beating thing, because that's something that we associate so much with, like, King Kong.
Yeah.
I just imagined this is like a Donkey Kong Country movie where Defoe is Donkey and Pattinson is Diddy. And inside the lighthouse is what's his face, the Kremlin guy.
Oh my God, King K. Rool.
King K. Rool, yeah, exactly.
Then Pattinson's like coming out with his little boat, just like da 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 da.
You're fond of me coconut gun. When it shoots you, it's gonna hurt. I seen it.
Well, Donkey Kong Country has a bit of a nautical theme itself.
Oh, especially by 2, yeah.
Yeah.
Where they're just straight up pirates.
Well, that's because the game ends on a pirate ship, and then with King K.
True.
Rool, and then when you get to 2, it's really cool. It takes place just immediately after that, so the whole first map is about that, and it's also neat because it stays at a harder difficulty than the first game opened on, so it sort of feels like you just keep going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely forgot that that's where that first one ends. I played them like back to back, so it kind of bleeds together. But
yeah, well, that last boss is some of my favorite video game music of all time.
Yeah,
I mean those games in general, but
well, I guess the mermaid would be Dixie, right? Like that's how we continue on, and then the sequel is Pattinson and the mermaid.
Somehow that's more disturbing to me than anything else tonight. So Yasmin, hey Austin, respectfully request you shoot me your address in Canada so I can ship you my next request, and would would you like a 4K or a Blu-ray copy?
I mean, I don't know what it is, but I mean that's very generous of you.
He has sent me some things in the mail before too. Yeah, thanks a lot,
yeah,
man.
absolutely. I don't know how exactly to message you. I don't know if you want to reach out to Cap and Cap can give it to you, or however.
Yeah, or if you have an email address you don't mind putting in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely. I can do that. I don't know if I can put it in the chat. I feel like it's going to get taken out, but I'll figure it out.
Otherwise, just send me a message and I'll get it to him.
Yeah, exactly.
Because yeah, so Gaspin, if you're still on Patreon, so you can just send it to me through Patreon. But yeah, thanks, man, and appreciate the super chat.
Yeah, that's absolutely generous. I've never had a viewer be like, "I'm gonna send you something."
Now you've made it.
I'm gonna send you me lobster.
And see, I feel like you go either way. Either that lobster is delicious or is the most disgusting thing. Like, it could go either way.
I feel like it's one of those things where the first time you eat it, it's like, oh, this is amazing. And then you have it every single day for several weeks. And it's part of that, like, oh my God, I want to completely kill myself here. This is terrible.
Well, I'm just trying to decide if there's any chance that this guy has good cooking skills. Like, I feel like it could go either way.
Yeah.
Like,
I
I
feel like
like
it's got
lobster.
probably
I'm
passable
with you. I
cooking.
don't think I would want to eat it every day, but I think it's more the question: can this guy cook?
It's definitely questionable.
Oh, I love how he breaks down the syllables of tetanus.
Yeah. I also forgot until I watched this, but apparently Eggers just really likes giving Defoe funny-looking pipes between this and his giant one in Nosferatu.
Yeah, I think I underestimated the comedy with this a little bit because I said at the beginning, and I sort of stand by this, that like I appreciate why people find this funny, but I don't really. I also have never watched this with an audience.
Oh, sure.
You know, like with anybody else, and just sitting in a room, like I'm seeing this like wild performance from Defoe, and I'm enjoying it, but I'm not really thinking about it on the level of funny.
Hmm. Yeah, I can't really remember what it was like in the theater when I saw this. I remember seeing it in the theater, like I remember the experience I had. I just don't remember what the audience was like if they were reacting or what.
Well, and I feel like we would be remiss in not
Oh,
saying this is.
Pattinson's accent's great here. Sorry.
No, you're all right. I feel like we'd be remiss in not saying this, as obvious as it is, but I think one of the reasons that a movie like this is and I don't say this to undercut the achievement here, but I think one of the reasons that a movie like this is so well appreciated is because it's really refreshing now. We just don't make a lot of stuff that's this experimental, and that's this like not paint by number, and like, yeah, there are art house movies, but a lot of that kind of stuff also tends to have a formula. This is an artist doing his own thing who got really lucky that anybody would bankroll him.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, obviously, I think he's a good writer and a good director, but without these two actors, like this could have easily misfired.
Yeah, that's true. That's true too. Or at least could have been not noticed. You know,
Mhm.
really easily dismissed.
Yeah, exactly. I want to see the stage play of this.
Uh,
It's one of those.
yes, it is one of those. I was going to say that. Well, and I I think it's easy not to look at this as a one-room drama because we go outside as much as we do, but it basically is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a one-island drama.
I think it's just the way he shoots it makes it feel like it's a little bigger than just being a one-room drama, um, because you're going to different spots on the island.
So what you're saying is it's like the first Arkham Asylum game.
Exactly. This basically is Arkham Asylum. You have Joker and you have Batman, and they're both going crazy in the
That's
asylum.
it.
And of course, the mermaid's Killer
And that
Croc.
game is also about isolation and madness. So there you go.
Exactly.
To some
And
degree, anyway.
yeah, and then the mermaid is Killer Croc.
And
It's a perfect metaphor.
It uses the asylum like a purgatory, like the island does here. It questions Batman's sanity. Yeah, it has disturbing sexuality, not to the degree this does, but
Now I want to see Pattinson in some sort of Arkham thing, because I mean he would nail that.
well, I didn't think Poison Ivy was the next thing I wanted to see in that franchise, but now I'm wondering if maybe that's the next thing to do. Because as I was saying that, I just had this flash of like a really, really creepy, weird Poison Ivy.
I just want to see Pattinson do that thing where you walk up to the pods and it's like.
That fits this material really well too, like with the tentacles and everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I want to just keep throwing ridiculous interpretations at you and ask you if there's any chance they're real. Is there any potential? Could it be a legitimate read that Defoe's character actually is secretly a Kraken?
Of course there is.
Because we do see him as a Kraken in one scene.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is what happened to the Kraken after Pirates 2. It didn't die. It just left to be in the lighthouse.
I'm calling it a Kraken. I don't know if that's what you'd call it, but it's an octopus creature with tentacles. I don't know.
I don't know. Just yeah.
It's Kraken-y. I don't know.
Krakenese.
It's not. It's Krakoa. No, it's not Krakoa.
Krakoan.
That's a different thing. Oh, he called him a dog again. That's gonna trigger Pattinson. Don't call him that.
Ye that is the Kraken.
That's like calling Marty McFly chicken or yellow. You don't want to do that.
The second you said Back to the Future, I'm like, I want to see this as like a reboot where this is Doc Brown. Does ye think that you can get plutonium in an average corner store? Does ye?
1.21 gigawatts.
You're fond of me, DeLorean. I know. I seen it.
You can probably get plutonium there at any corner drugstore.
Doc, I'm tired of you fighting all day.
But here in 1890, it's a bit hard to come by.
Oh yeah, so looking at it again, this is absolutely that boss that was drowning in the river. So that is the same guy. And now she's a mermaid.
That's the thumbnail I used, because of course I did.
Oh, I don't even think I saw it when I looked at it. Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah, I went with the creepy Kraken Defoe phase.
It's beautiful.
But I'm just kidding. I don't think there's any way that that's actually that wasn't a hallucination. But that's one of the only times I'm positive I was looking at a hallucination, Austin.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he could actually be a dog. That could be a reading.
Oh, it's weird that we never see that.
Mm-hmm. Well, we see it right here. He's like, "Come on, dog."
Oh, I thought you meant Pattinson.
Oh no, I meant Defoe.
Well, that is textbook projection then, Austin.
No,
he calls him a dog the whole movie, and then we flash back to him. And, oh, because you're a dog.
Yeah, there's
and then we just look at a Rorschach ink blot test like from Watchmen. That's a dog.
There's Scooby and Shaggy. At the end of the movie, they're like, the lighthouse is actually Old Man Jenkins. Back!
Austin, in the moment, and I had this on both viewings I've had of this so far,
mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure I bought Defoe, like, caving in and cooperating with this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you had that.
No, but just because he was, like, beating him to death a second ago, so it's like there's no way he can get out of this. Like,
yeah.
If he doesn't follow along, he's probably just going to kill him.
And then he's just, maybe hoping to find his time to turn it back around if he can, like, get enough of a second win. Because he does do that. Like, later he's going to get out of the hole and come at him with a hatchet or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. No, it's like he's so broken at this point, there's no way he's going to be able to fight Pattinson off.
Also, I was legitimately shocked by just how committed Defoe is when he's being buried alive.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of the craziest performances I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, he's actually swallowing dirt for this performance.
Mm-hmm.
And people act like acting is an easy job and people don't work for their millions, and like, yeah, it's a lot of money. These guys get paid sometimes, maybe not for this movie as much.
Mm-hmm.
But
Connor was saying the other night with Nosferatu, like, I think with this too, like, they were not given enough recognition for like how good their performances are. Defoe specifically with both of them. Were like I feel like Eggers has kind of always been snubbed.
Yeah,
But
this won a technical Oscar.
yeah,
I can't remember if it was.
I think it's cinematography, which makes sense.
That's what I was gonna say. That's what I thought it was.
But like the fact that you're not even hearing it this year in a pretty weak year with at the very least Skarsgård and Defoe, if not also Lily Rose Depp and Holt. And it's crazy to me that Eggers has never been nominated for Best Director.
Yeah, and I think he should be. I think that would have been appropriate for Nosferatu. And obviously Nosferatu should get nominated for all the technical Oscars too, but I think it is a crime if Defoe doesn't get nominated. And
Yeah.
that would be the one from that movie that, and obviously I think he should have been for this too, but that would have been the one from that movie that I feel like is just vital.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, everybody's great in that.
Mhm.
But I agreed with you when you said that performance was just unbelievable.
Yeah. No, he's really good because I remember when he was cast, I was like, okay, he's gonna be like the Renfield because that's like the obvious thing you cast Defoe in at this point at his age. And then when it was announced he was going to be the Van Helsing, I was like, oh, that's really against type. And they bring it into more of a Defoe-y place, but at the same time, like it's very different from other roles he's done. Like it's I don't know. Like I said, I feel like Eggers is one of the few people that's really pushing Defoe and like getting really great performances out of him. Not that he's bad in other things, but more of that. Like I said, the Samuel L. Jackson and Tarantino thing, where I feel like other directors will cast him because it's Defoe or because it's Sam Jackson, and they'll be like, okay, well, I cast you because I like you in this thing, so I kind of just want you to do that.
Well, you can tell he's appreciating being allowed to spread his wings the way he is. Like he's developing like full blown ground up characters.
Yeah, absolutely.
And having to do accents, and like I'm not used to Defoe doing accents.
But I feel like that's why he's so locked in with Eggers at this point, is he's like, this is why I got into acting. Like I feel like he's getting those kinds of roles.
Well, he's getting to do stage work on camera. And
Yeah, exactly.
That's what this movie is.
Yeah. That's what I was saying earlier. Like it does feel like this is in his later life he's doing the kind of stage work back to basics thing that a lot of actors do.
I don't know why I love that shot we just had of Pattinson looking up past the camera.
I mean, this is one of those, every frame of painting type.
I also don't think on first viewing I appreciated by the end of this how much of a oddly of a MacGuffin story it ends up being. Because they don't spend the whole movie arguing about the light. It keeps coming back up.
Yeah, I mean, it helps that it's not something that they're like, going after like in that kind of a way too, where it's obviously like that is what it is, but
yeah,
it's not as in your face about like this is the device that I'm using.
No, it's kind of like Loki's scepter in Avengers or something, but it's building a whole piece around it, where it's like there's the if our reader's right, where there's this thing that's influencing them.
Yeah, it's in the Loki scepter. It had the Vision inside, and in the Lighthouse, it has Cthulhu inside. Oh, Dan Stan, I really hope The Substance gets a Best Picture nominee, but I don't. I keep assuming it won't, but hopefully.
I gotta catch up on some movies from this last year, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if you would like that, but that is my favorite movie of this year or this last year.
I don't know, when I talk to you about things, you make me feel like I'm really picky and I hate everything. Like
No, I don't. If that's how I come across, I don't mean
No, no,
to.
no, no. I'm just joking. It's just we have different tastes in things. So you'll bring up things and you'll be like, this movie's awesome. It should be nominated for Best Picture. I should watch it. I don't know if you should watch it, Cam.
No. What I mean by this, and I mentioned it to you when I saw it because I was like, The Substance is a movie that I want to recommend to you so bad, but I'm like, the last half will completely turn you off. I think of the last half hour.
I mean,
Where
you
like
know me pretty well.
I feel like everything up to that point you would adore. You would be like, this is a great movie, and I feel like it might lose you in the last half hour, but that is a great movie. It's very like The Fly, like that kind of a movie.
Oh, cool.
Hmm.
So it gets really gross somewhere, right?
Yeah, and I feel like it probably loses you in the last half hour with that, but it might also not. I
So
don't
you're
know.
saying it's mermaid vagina, but everywhere.
Exactly. Well, and
Okay.
that's a movie all about like beauty standards. Like the plot of it is that there's the substance that you can take where you like split off and you have yourself now and a younger version of yourself that you like live back and forth between.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a really good premise. Yeah, Demi Moore's like the older one, and I think she gives like one of the best performances of the year.
That almost sounds like the villain plot of Catwoman, like done well.
Oh yeah, kinda.
Robert says it turns into a superhero movie in the third act.
Possibly. I mean, there is one shot in it that ever since I saw somebody make the joke, I now just see the crypto dragging Superman along in the new Superman trailer. And if you've seen The Substance, you probably know the exact shot I'm talking about. I wonder if this fake blood is like a fake blood or if it's like a chocolate syrup type, like psycho thing.
Yep. Yeah, it probably is. I mean, they know they're shooting in black and white,
Yeah. I just
so
had that thought
so
just
it wouldn't
looking at
have
it.
to have a color. But looking at the consistency of it, that'd be my guess. But who knows? I mean, honestly, I wasn't even sure it was blood for a minute, and then I was like, oh yeah, that's right. He did just murder a man.
Yeah. I like that as the light brightens, it like starts to fade off of his face. Like
Or is it just that bright?
I think it's just that bright, but like visually, like that's what you're seeing is it looks like it's kind of fading off in the.
Well, and then with this identity theme, I would imagine the idea is the blood acts as kind of a mask that reveals his true self.
Mhm.
And then I'm not. And there's about 15 plausible interpretations of what just happened there, but we've talked about some of that already.
Yeah, exactly. Like either way, like supernatural or not, that's him like fully giving into the madness. I think.
But like I said, I want it to be supernatural, but if it isn't, I like and again, the piece has to stand on its own. I
Mhm.
like that you don't have Eggers coming right out and saying for sure one way or another. And if he did, I would ignore him. I like the piece has to stand.
Mhm.
Um, which is why it's a little frustrating to me because I don't feel like I have enough to give a even two like totally separate but believable reads because it's so ambiguous. But I do like your idea that it could be there's nothing there and that freaks him out. But then I'm not sure why I I'm not sure why the audio is that way if that were the case. I mean, sure, we're just in his head and like that's how he's experiencing it, but like
Mhm.
if it's just oh, there's nothing here.
Mhm. I mean, I think that's just like the representation of the kind of madness type thing. Even if it is supernatural, I don't know that that's necessarily like some sort of thing that it's doing. Like I don't know. I think it could be.
Well, it also could be that there is nothing there, but he's already lost his mind, so he thinks he's seeing something that isn't there,
I forgot
which would
Chris
track
Columbus
with if the
produced
mermaid
this.
is not actually real, etc. And he
Hmm.
does see Defoe as a kraken, so I mean, he's pretty far gone.
Yeah, exactly. I forgot Chris Columbus produced this. That was the name I was
Yeah,
surprised to see on Nosferatu, but I guess he goes back with Eggers, all this way.
Yeah, I guess he's just in their brain trust now.
Yeah,
But I was surprised to see that too.
it's really funny because like this isn't the type of thing I associate with that name.
No, of course not.
Oh yeah, there is like a couple actors here. There was like a solid like 8. There must be more people on the ship at the beginning than I thought.
Yeah, I wasn't paying really close attention to how many actors were there, I guess.
They're probably like just in passing.
It's easy to forget that scene entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I forgot it open on that black screen. I thought that I had a bad internet connection when I was watching this earlier because I was watching it on a tablet with a mobile hotspot, and I was like, oh, my hotspot's not working.
Rats.
Oh, it totally is.
There was someone that worked on this film named Jessica Jones. I'm just throwing that out there.
Oh, that's cool. She must have been investigating the
Lighthouse.
The mermaid. Robert says the mermaid needs a spinoff. Well, that would tell me whether it's
mermaid.
That would tell me whether it's real.
Father, I banged Robert Pattinson. I want legs. I want to go up where they are. That was cool.
Yeah, I made that joke before the show started because somebody said something about Little Mermaid, and I was like, that's kind of what this movie is about. Like, I want to go where the people are.
I want to edit that scene where Pattinson's viciously going to town with the Kiss the Girl song over it.
Austin, that movie's fascinating, man.
Yeah, no, I feel like this was a really good discussion.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot more watching it with you, and I'm like, I was already like I said, really fascinated by it.
Yeah.
Just,
I mean, I guess it is that type of movie where like it's fun to just like talk things out.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I've got the reservations I've got, but it's undeniably a neat movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's super well made. Oh my god, the menu is so weird because it's the full widescreen. So it's just like zoomed in to fill the frame.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say the menu went 4:3, and I was gonna be like, that's cool.
No, it's full widescreen, but it's playing footage of the movie like behind the menu, but that is stretched out to be widescreen. So it's like, wait a minute, these are shots from the movie that are not 4:3.
Oh, that is weird. So it just stretches them?
Yeah, exactly. It's like zoomed in. That's so weird.
Don't do that. Oh wow, and Parasite was that same year? That's 6 years old now?
Yeah. Yeah, because that was the big Oscar movie.
I haven't seen that either.
Yeah, that was... Actually, I think I own that movie. I'm pretty sure I bought it because I was like, I need to watch this, and I just still haven't gotten around to it.
You haven't seen it either?
No, I've been meaning to, like, since it came out. Like, I think I missed it in the theater.
Yeah, I'm just looking at recommended things on Max after we watched that. Did you know The Revenant is 10 years old now?
Yeah, I guess it would be.
That's wild. I saw that in the theater.
Same. That was a movie that I didn't really like when I saw it, but I've never seen it since.
Oh, really? I liked it a lot.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like everyone did. I was definitely.
And I'm not even a big man versus nature guy, but I really liked that.
Yeah, no, for sure. That was also my first like foray into. I don't know if I like Tom Hardy.
That's one of the only Tom Hardy performances where he doesn't have a thing on his face.
That is true, but he is still doing a crazy voice. And he's got like something on the top of his head where it's like he was like half scalped at some point. It's something like that.
But it's surprised Tom Hardy wasn't Nosferatu.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, especially because I was already kind of comparing the voice to Bane a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
not saying it sounds like that. It's just it's wild and weird. And I don't know what to do with it in the same way.
You've only adopted the dark. I was
Oh my god, that would make Rises so much longer.
If all of his lines were said like that, yeah, exactly.
Because he just keeps talking.
And do you accept this man's resignation?
Your Nosferatu, your Nosferatu kind of sounds like Palpatine, but like a really slowed down. He sounds like Palpatine underwater.
Palpatine at like 0.25 speed.
And the Trigger Man is a mystery.
Perhaps he is wondering why you would shoot a man before throwing him out of a plane.
Do you feel in charge?
I mean, I can see him saying that in that movie.
Oh my god. This
Where
is fun.
the hell is Orlok?
Oh my god. Okay, we're gonna get going. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Like I said, Austin and I will be back tomorrow night with another commentary. We're gonna do Captain Invincible. Austin, if you can do it early enough, probably 9 o'clock tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that shouldn't be an
That's my
issue.
thinking, because Jason's gonna join us for that one.
Yeah. No, it works. And we have another famous Dracula.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot that Jason wanted to do that one, and we were talking about that today, and I was like, oh crap, I better make sure it's not too late.
Sorry, Jareth just got me with the what a lovely
What a lovely voice. I haven't quite perfected my Nosferatu yet. I'm still trying to decide what it's going to sound like.
Yeah, no, I feel like I'm just workshopping it right now. I have to get like a whole like 6 octaves deeper though. I don't know if I can do that. I feel like if I can at least get the cadence of it right.
Now I want to make him Optimus Prime, Cliff Jumper,
Cade the Jaeger.
and the Jaeger.
Roll out.
Okay, see you later, everybody. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.
Yeah, see ya.